Ours are integrated and they're separate. So, it all depends on what solution you think is going to be most beneficial to you. I know another one that a lot of top teams use is Sierra. Sierra it's an all-in-one system where you can run PPC through, and a lot of agents have utilized that platform. So I know that is like when we were a team, and starting to kind of grow and scale, that was the first thing we were kind of looking at, is just so where we can incorporate all those contacts, making sure that we're reaching out, don't miss anything, whether we're sending out mail pieces, calling, texting, emailing, all can be done through that platform.
What
And
do you
then,
think, Joe, in your opinion, are the most important things that need to be in place when looking for the proper CRM? Because there are a lot of options out there, and people might have ones that they love or hate, or all the above. What do you think is most important from a standpoint of supporting the individual agent, and then from a scalability side, the visibility that you feel like you need to have as a team leader and a broker eventually? um, I'm assuming your CRM needs to support that, right?
yeah,
So
absolutely.
is
So,
there
so as
something
far as the
you mentioned
agent,
there?
I mean, you want to look at a portal that can do all methods of communication. So, you can call, you have a assigned phone number through Follow Up Boss, but you can't through multiple CRMs. Your email, you have to get a Gmail. So, all of our emails are through Google Suite and incorporates with the system. And then also the texting as well as in the system. So any type of communication that we ever do with a client, regardless of what method of communication we choose, is going to be time stamped and create like a journal or a log of all communications. Phone calls could also be recorded. So that's, I think, great for agent perspectives to like, and it could be something where, I mean, a lot of the common things that most agents will think of, you can store birthdays in there, create tasks for reaching out. Obviously, those things are important. But like the visibility and the transparency of the system of like, all right, if you're using the calendar with G Suite, which also integrates, and every time you schedule your showings, you send a calendar invite to that client, then you could start to see how many times have I been out with this buyer showing homes. Like a lot of agents don't track that. That's something that we do, to try to make our agents more efficient and kind of work on their sales skill set. So I think finding, an all-in-one integration where you can use the calendar, email, um, phone for calling and text, and then it kind of timestamps everything so you have a visibility into what engagement you've had with them. In addition, to the visibility if you're a team leader, where you can have like an admin portal where you can kind of see that. So if you're doing any sales training or coaching for your agents, you can kind of see their engagement, how often they're reaching out, what method of communication, what their response rate is, what seems to be working for them, how much time they're spending in the system, prospecting, things of that nature. So I think from the team perspective, you want a CRM that gives you the visibility of the key metrics that you're going to be grading and coaching your agents to, where you get quick visibility so you don't have to literally go through every lead one by one to kind of take your notes when it comes to the coaching and training of the agents.
Yeah, and obviously there's different CRMs who provide these things, differently. And
Mm-hmm.
some of them are kind of very easy to use, and others almost feel like, you have to take a course, be a PhD to be able to figure it
Yeah,
out.
you might
Um,
have to learn how to code.
right. Or yeah, exactly, which is a whole other animal in and of itself. So you've already kind of given your recommendations for what seems to have worked for you guys, and why, why you like it. Um, do you feel like there's the importance, I guess the question is related to the balance of having too much stuff that the CRM could do versus really focusing in on the basics that ultimately are the most important leverage points, right? That
Mm-hmm.
you feel like are needed. Um, when na As your business has evolved, have you found yourself needing to tap into those extra bells and whistles, so to speak, that the CRM can provide, or do you still feel like that's not really as important or needed?
I don't think that's important. I mean, I think that's a great sales pitch, and as agents, we're always kind of chasing the shiny coin, or hey, we need to get this, or this tech can do this, or this tech can do that. But I think it's which one's going to be most efficient and easy to use for the bare essentials, which is communication, storing all of your notes, uploading documents, attachments, things of that nature. I remember a long time ago when I started coaching with Tom Ferry, I think 20 back in 2015, they were talking about CRMs and they said, somebody asked the coach, "Hey, what's the best CRM that there is out there, the market?" And he said the best CRM is the one that you're going to use.
Right.
So it's just finding an interface that you're comfortable with and that you're actually going to work out of. And all these additional features are great, but I've found there's some people who do utilize them, but most don't. So it's, hey, out of the bare necessities, the communication, how easy it is to kind of have that visibility to see notes, is how organized is it, and am I going to be comfortable working out of it is going to be the most important thing, other than all the features. Now, when it comes to, hey, if I'm having, depending on what your needs going to be, if you're having a CRM and IDX integration together, then you're just going to buy like one integrated system rather than trying to put it together yourself where you can have multiple plugins. Really depends on your vision and what you want to do and the need. If you're kind of a small team, just want to run some PPC and you don't need a lot of integration or a lot of APIs coming in with different lead sources and other features, then it might be something as simple as just finding an all-in-one solution, which in the long run will probably save you money. But if it's something where you think you're going to grow and scale and then need all, these additional plugins kind of come in later on to make you more efficient, if you want to grow a large organization, then you might want to get something where, it's not fully customizable like a Salesforce, but you get a little bit more control with like a follow-up boss system compared to like if you went to Commissions Inc. or Boomtown or something.
So it sounds like whether you're an individual agent who is just trying to be successful as an agent, right? Or you're somebody who's recruiting, team building, running a brokerage. Your advice from a system standpoint would be is they should have a CRM regardless,
Yeah.
in either role, just
Yeah.
to make sure that there's some sort of, leverage and support that is supporting their business and it's not just all, writing stuff down on paper, right?
100%. We have I mean, it's still Follow Boss, but we have a separate Follow Boss account for recruiting. So we have two, one for buyer sellers and then one for agent attraction.
Oh, okay, interesting. And then there are obviously even CRM options where you can still integrate that all into one account, right? And just
Mm-hmm.
have them be separated. Okay, makes sense.
Absolutely.
Have you found, Joe, over the years in your experience, the agents who embrace CRMs and leverage of some sort, is there a tie to the success that those agents seem to have in the business versus the ones who are very resistant to that type of stuff?
Yeah, and honestly, a lot of it comes down to the basics, right? I think a lot of times people will think it's, the super high level integration that agents are needing to do to have a high level of production. But I mean, I find agents who use their calendar versus ones who don't have a significantly increase in production just by holding themselves accountable. And it's an all-in-one system where everything goes into it, from personal appointments to any appointment outside of business to work related. And they color code it and then have that calendar within the CRM. So it helps them stay organized. We've seen that they become more efficient and more productive, not in just real estate, but all aspects of their life by kind of doing better with that time management component than the ones who create tasks for themselves in a system where they constantly get alerts like a calendar invite are much more efficient than somebody who's like, hey, all right, I'll remember to call you tomorrow at 5 p.m. And then, even if you forget 20% of the time, that's essentially 20% of the business that you could have missed out on. So
Mhm.
just using those bare, essentials, we've seen drastic increase in spike in production. So if there's agents out there who aren't using calendar, who aren't using tasks, who aren't, have some kind of system in place where everything's documented so you could see all the conversations that you had with a buyer or seller prospect, then I think you're really missing the mark, and it's going to kind of limit you into what you can do at a production level. And then as you kind of grow and scale, it's going to be much harder for you to do if you don't have something that's keeping you organized and to stay on track.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense for sure. And there are obviously certain agents who just have a natural tendency to embrace technology, and whether it's CRMs or other things, and then others who really are resistant to it just because it's new, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
it's that whole mindset of are they willing to actually try something new and learn? I think would you advise that the importance of the support role within your CRM or whatever tool you're using, having like some legitimate support options, I think would probably be an important feature to look for, I would imagine, right?
Yeah, most of them do. I mean, also you want some recommendations. Talk to your, I'm sure there's agents wherever brokerage you're working out of that are utilizing some of the platforms that you're looking at.
Yep.
But just ask for their experience. I think that's, you know, a referral or reference from a fellow peer that you work with that's utilized the system and has positive things to say about it is going to give you, uh, the well, how can I say it? The most confidence that you're moving forward with the right system. But then second, also you can search online reviews and then see what kind of customer support they have. Find out if it's going to be a chat or if you get live support, how quick their turn times are. Sometimes it's tough to find that out on your own. So usually word of mouth. I mean, there's a million real estate forums where if you go plug a couple systems on there to get feedback on, you'll have 50 responses, I guess, within the first hour
Yeah.
of everybody's experience, whether it's good or bad. So going to some of these different real estate forums and just kind of asking the community what their experience is or what their thoughts on our certain platform, I think you'll get the good, the bad, the ugly, and then you can also kind of see how that support is.
So if our topic today is really about scaling, right, through systems, and we're going to try to identify a couple of those key systems that are needed in someone's journey of scaling, it sounds like you would say the CRM that you're using is that kind of the foundational quote unquote system that you'd
Mm-hmm.
recommend first and foremost somebody is embracing, tapping into. It's getting that right one that they're actually using, as you said. Would you agree that's the foundational part of it?
100%.
Okay. And then, so where does it go from there? So, whether I'm just an individual agent who's trying to grow in a certain way with my business, obviously, or I'm looking to grow a team and scale, that could obviously determine what the next steps would be, I would imagine, from a
Mm-hmm.
system standpoint. We can talk about whichever one you feel like you're more excited to dive into or more inclined to be able to elaborate on.
Yeah,
But
I mean, I
what's
can
the
tackle them both and kind of let you know how we utilize all the systems to kind of, take a trip down memory lane on when we incorporate what.
Yeah, go ahead.
One, you're going to need, so, showing time, we got that right out the gate to help with showing of listings, where they can just hit the button. We pay for the showing time where the agent or sellers would respond to the showing request and we either confirm, deny, or request to reschedule. We get time block calendars in there for everybody. We give access to that for all of our agents. So every agent within our brokerage does have access to showing time. That was, we had early adoption on that and made it way more efficient for our listing agents rather than try to confirm every showing request that they got with the seller themselves. Another thing is we use what's called Monday. We used Google Drive in the past, but Monday's kind of like our intranet. It's almost like for project management, storing a lot of information. We were using Google Drive prior to that, but Google Drive gets a little clunky where it's harder to stay organized. So Monday, at first, while you're small, if you have access to G Suite, which I'm sure everyone does, you can use the Google Drive and create your sheets and all that kind of stuff, Excel and whatever it is you're running. But we found that Monday, once we kind of grew in scale and got a little bigger, it was kind of our main hub. So as brokerages have intranet, Monday would kind of be our intranet and would kind of direct you to everywhere that you need to go. A basic one for financing, QuickBooks is what we use for accounting. If you were looking for software to kind of manage your books, things like that, that's something that we had early adoption to as well. And then from there, it all depends on, exactly what it is you're trying to do. We use MailChimp for like newsletters and mail pieces that integrates in Follow Up Boss. So as we built a database, that was probably like phase two where we wanted to stay in contact with them. And then would have, custom tailored messaging for different targeted audience. Well, buyers would get a certain subset, sellers, past clients, things of that nature. AM Cards, I believe, is the name of it. It's a plugin with Follow Up Boss. That's where you can just like send handwritten cards directly from the system. Obviously, you pay per piece that you send, but with Follow Up Boss, we had that integration, and that helped us. If we're having a function or an event, or just wanted to send a home anniversary card or whatever it might be through the system, it gave it super easy access to get sent out. So that was probably some of the systems that were like, I would say phase two,
Mm-hmm.
as we're kind of like a smaller team and helping us grow, scale, and stay efficient. I think the obviously, I think you need to use some kind of Excel platform or Google Sheet. Monday is what we utilize. That's going to be essential to running the business. But the showing time saved us a lot of time. I mean, I remember there was a short period of time where we had to confirm our own listings, the showings our own listings, and that took forever.
Yeah.
So For agents not utilizing that, I would recommend, and that being one of the first investments you make is showing time for the listing portfolio that you have.
So as your agents, Joe, evolve even within your brokerage, do you have certain systems that like they then kind of graduate into based on where they are in the business? Does that make sense? Is there like a different suite of products that you think are needed to come alongside an agent based on where they're at in the business?
If you're, I wouldn't say so. Everybody gets access to everything within our organization, but I would say some aren't utilizing it as much as others. So, like we use what's called Sisu. It kind of tracks all agent stats and pending deals. We use it for transaction management. Agents can log on the portal, see how much they've closed for the year to date, what their pendings are currently, how far percentage off they are from their goals. And we found that our agents who are in a higher level production utilize that and like that information. Plus, it also gives like rankings within the team of like, hey, who's closed the most this month or who's closed the most units year to date, things of that nature. So we put on all the big screens within the office to kind of create that competitive spirit amongst agents. But something like that, like agents using the Sisu component, are going to use that more as they graduate. Obviously, to where they are paying more attention to their production rather than somebody just getting into production.
Hmm.
Showing time, obviously, if you're just starting real estate and just working with buyers, you might not need to go spend a monthly subscription to showing time. And if you only have one listing, that might be manageable. But once you have two or three, so once you start becoming a more active listing agent, I would say agents here would utilize that more. With our listings, we have listing coordination house, so everybody does it. But until you I would say are getting 2 to 3 listings a month, you might be able to manage that on your own before having to incur that cost. So those are some things that I would say are kind of next level as far as super high level for agents. Everything else that we've brought on comes from like a organizational standpoint to provide assistance for them, give them guidance, make it more efficient for all parties involved. But I don't know if necessarily it's, hey, they got this system because they're doing a high level production or they've been doing real estate for a certain period of time.
Yeah, I'm curious to your opinion on in real estate, obviously, it's not a quick sales cycle, right? So you have the importance of nurturing is really critical for any successful agent, right? It's building that pipeline, nurturing that pipeline. Eventually, if leads are nurtured properly, then they many times will turn into, actual clients, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think if utilized properly, a good CRM and other forms of systems can help with that nurturing process. But there's also, and I know some agents have told me this, there's almost a fear too of like losing the personal touch side of things, right? So I'm curious your opinion on that balance between the role of just the personal manual touches. Obviously, that's always going to be a part and an important part of our business. Relationships is key. That's not going anywhere. But still utilizing software and systems like you've done and you've provided for your agents to make some of that stuff easier and help when there's these gaps and when there's needs to be able to fill those gaps. So I was wondering if you can touch on your opinion on like that sort of personal side versus systems and how you've seen them integrate and work together, and just if you have a thought on that.
Yeah, so I mean, I gave you some. So you can send like canned emails or do all these email drips and yada yada yada, and you don't get that great of engagement. I mean, it does give them a touch, but we don't see that many responses to a lot of the cans. So when you talk about personalized, I'll give you examples of some things that we do. When we coach our agents, we always talk. You have hot, warm, and nurture. Hot is somebody looking to transact 3 months, nurture 3 to 6 months, or not, I'm sorry, warm 3 to 6 months, and nurture 6 months or greater. And typically, I'd say, hey, if somebody's hot, you probably want to reach out to them at least once a week, if not more often. Somebody's warm or somebody's hot, probably 2 or 3 times a week. Somebody's warm once a week, and then on nurture, depending on what stage they're at, no less than quarterly, but most of them monthly. And a lot of times they just wouldn't reach out because they don't know what to say or they don't know what to do. And there could be things where it's kind of custom creation, but you're bringing value to your consumer base. So I would always say is, but whenever we kind of did creation and try to create engagement, I'd always kind of take a step back and be like, all right, if I were a buyer, I were a seller, what were some pieces that I pay attention to open and click? So like one thing we do on the buy side is like deal of the week, and we'll You can create one email, then through your database, you can send it out to everybody. And then you can do it county specific. So there'll be a deal of the week per county. And it's just going on the MLS and finding a really good deal out there, whether it's a handyman special, investor special, a house that's priced under market value, but maybe it's going to be multiple offers on. And you're kind of having this custom creation you're doing on an email that's not a drip because you're giving them relevant data that's accurate today and you're sending that out. Or it could be like if you send an email out to everybody who purchased at the beginning of the following year, like don't forget to file your homestead taxes, before the expiration date. It's not a canned email. You're typing out an email, but you're sending it out to them. So there is relevance, there's important, and it's a value add. Other things you can do is community events, like things that are going on in the area. People like to read about that, learn about it. So somebody that might not be familiar with the area. So kind of just creating that email and then sending it out to that target audience where you're kind of using, instead of it just being some kind of template that they're seeing a million times from 50 different agents, you're using something that is relevant in today's market, whatever the topic is, but also you're bringing value to them because you're kind of having that human component of typing it and creating that piece. But then you're also having the efficiency and the ease of being able to target a certain audience and send it to multiple people rather than just sending one email at a time if you were just working through your email.
Yeah. So it sounds like you obviously agree that the value in the personal touch is critical, it's needed,
100%. Yeah.
but you can utilize technology the right ways to be able to enhance that and make it more reliable. Is that a good synopsis of what you just said?
Yeah, 100%. Another thing too, if you want to get a little bit more granular with the personal touch, on a lot of these IDX softwares, whether you're using it all in one or you have a plugin with something like a Follow Boss, they'll have the visibility of what homes a certain particular buyer's looked at, whether they've shared it with a family member or they hearted it. So if you kind of get that intel, then you could then go run a search at that platform or the MLS, make sure you check that house and check two more and be like, hey, I was just thinking about you today. Here's two or three homes that I think you might find interested, that you might be interested in. Let me know what you think. And you kind of send that email out. They click the link, and so lo and behold, one of them happens to be the one that they hearted or just shared. They're like, oh my gosh, you'll never believe this.
Hmm.
I just hearted that. I saw that property, but you'll be like, oh, okay. Must be in the sun. Let's go take a look and set up a touring and see if you want to see this. What did you think of the other properties? And you can kind of go ahead and set up a showing based on sending out that email that you're getting the intel from their property search through using the system. And then you get that custom, uh, you'll have that custom content to reach out to them for based on the information that you receive from the portal through what they're searching and what they're saving or sharing or whatever it might be.
Yeah, no, that's great. That makes sense. The smarter that you can make the tools work for you,
Mm-hmm.
the more leverage you're tapping into. So I think that's a great way to scale if you can make it as personal as possible. Um,
100%.
and I want to touch on some of the recruiting side as well because I know that that's been a focus of yours for many years now. But before we do that, real quick, with the evolution of AI now that everyone obviously is tapping into in some way, shape, or form, and this is still, I think, the beginning stages of what this maybe will look like for the real estate world. Have you already started incorporating that in terms of some of the specific CRM functionalities or other systems and things that you've been dealing with? What role, if any, has AI played in what you've been starting to tap into?
Yeah, we use Well Open. They have the AI integration in. We were using their AI. They had AI ISAs. We didn't see the best results from that, so we discontinued with that. But they have Raya, which is similar to like if somebody's searching their portal or um, sharing properties will be pretend they're the assistant. Hi, I'm Raya, assistant Joe LoCicero. I saw you were just on our portal viewing these properties, wanted to see if you might have any interest. And then they'll kind of create that conversation. The agent can kind of come over and take over that conversation at any time. So we do utilize that AI integration. Chat GPT, I'll use all the time, but just personally things like it might be something little of, it might be towards the end of the day and I get an email and I'm like, shit, I don't know how to respond to this, just basic shit. I'll upload
Yeah,
it and be like, you know, help me create a response, and then I'll kind of give a bullet point of what I want the messaging to be, and
yeah,
then I'll just kind of word out like two paragraphs or whatever how to respond, and then copy and paste. Because sometimes the my mental bandwidth just is over at a certain point, and I
yeah.
need some
No,
help.
I
So I
hear you.
rely on Chat GPT for things like that. As
And it's
far as
amazing how much better that email looks when they create it than what I would have done.
100%, or trainings every time I go to create a training class. I'll be like, create a training curriculum focused on five main elements of how to gain a listing if I'm a real estate agent.
Hmm.
And boom, it'll give me a whole curriculum like in 2 seconds. And I'll copy paste that. Then I'll go to Google and I'll search like some relevant data to kind of train to our market. And within 15 minutes, I have a training curriculum for a class here within the brokerage.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That makes a lot of sense for sure. And just as a reminder, guys, if you do have any follow-up questions on any of the topics that Joe's been diving into, feel free to use the chat. It looks like it's working, or the Q&A, so we can try to get to some questions that you might have for those of you who are live right now watching on the webinar. This is recorded, by the way. I pushed the button a little bit late, but we did start recording after like a minute or two in. So this will be lived in our Top Producers Nation community database. We have a library with all the recordings, so you can find this there as well for evergreen content with Joe. Let's talk a little bit about what you've been scaling, utilizing to scale on the recruiting side. So you've obviously invested a lot of energy into building and scaling your team, not just the number of people on your team, but the quality, the productivity, everything that you're providing from a support standpoint. But for people out there who are looking to grow their team leaders, brokers, whether they're in or out of production. What have been some of the systems that you think have really been needed that have helped you grow and scale the size of your organization and the effectiveness of it?
So Corded's a system that we use, which is really good. It gives you all agent stats and metrics.
What's it called again,
Uh,
Joe?
Corded, Corded, Courted.
Okay.
And the great thing about that is as you go through and you put your criteria, so you can pull stats, upload them to a CRM, send messaging, things like that. But per agent will also give you, like, as you're going through a roster, if you put in a certain demographic that you're looking for, they'll kind of preempt you with AI a text to send them based on their recent activity. So, let's say it's John Smith I'm seeing with Keller Williams. Every single agent based on their recent activity, because it's all has the data through the MLS, will prompt you on what to send out. So they'll be like, "Hey, congratulations, John! I just saw you sold 123 Main Street for $410,000 on June 4th. Great job. Just want to let you know I'm taking note." And it's boom. So it's just copy paste. We go to our CRM and we send the text. So it has like all the agent metrics and stuff. So you can pull a certain demographic, whether it's a brokerage, productivity level, time they've been in the business, whatever it is you might be your avatars for recruiting. But then it gives you kind of preemptive text to send every single person based on some kind of real estate milestone to help create that engagement where it is going to be to what you're saying before about buyers and sellers, tailored to that specific person rather than just some canned email. Hey, how would you like some more leads, or how would you like to double your business, type of thing.
Yep.
So that's been the main piece of tech we've been using for the recruiting element. There's use a lot of like ISAs, VAs to kind of help offset that, but it wouldn't really necessarily be any software or system integration. Cord is the main one we use. Follow Boss is the CRM. We integrate those, and then we just have people kind of managing the responses that will get them over to our recruiter and create those appointments, and then utilizing the main essentials from there. We use Calendly, I think is how you pronounce it. So a recruiter has that, where you have the link where they can schedule that at any time. Google Meet or Zoom for a meeting if they prefer virtual. But Corded is going to be the main piece of, or the main system and tech that we use for recruiting that a lot of people might not be aware of.
Okay. So that's a separate software piece, it sounds like.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
And with these different softwares that you're using for productivity with your agents as well as recruiting that you just mentioned, like what does the structure of the organization look like in terms of who manages all this software, right? Who puts it into place? How certain people, if you're the broker yourself, you may or may not be great at it when it comes to just being hardwired um, to put software into place, right? To actually like execute what the software is supposed to be doing. So does that mean that you're generally hiring a COO to handle a lot of that kind of stuff? Is there a different tech person that you're normally putting in place to kind of be in charge of software integrations and all those things? I know that you have a lot of different staff members in your organization. I'm assuming, and I'm assuming you have like an org chart of what their roles
Mhm.
are and what they do. And every business is going to structure it a little bit differently. But if you wanted to touch a little bit on just your thought process on the role that your people have played in implementing all of these systems and how they work together.
Yeah, so we have both a COO and a tech IT person. And I would say how we at one point didn't have the COO, that would be the tech IT person, or it was me in the very beginning implementing it. And then as we grew, we brought in specialists. But how we have it now, to kind of give visibility on it, is the COO would do the research on how everything's going to work, kind of do cascading messages for the entire group once everybody had buy-in, how it's going to affect every division. And then the systems and tech guy would go ahead and start to incorporate everything and build that out. And then if they ran into issues, would reach out to the COO with any questions or any concerns they had, or if they needed help and guidance. Then now there might get certain things where it's higher level that we can't do on our own. And we use a service called BARA, BARA, which is, you pretty much pay for like coding or developers, whatever you want to do, which will help with some of kind of the build outs and integration. You buy 10-hour blocks. This is going to get to be higher level when you're doing custom integrations and coding. But you can buy that and then they can do something higher level that, your typical tech IT person's not going to have knowledge on. So we'll outsource that to, which would be essentially like a web developing company for, proprietary solutions within our brokerage to kind of help with that integration and make things most efficient for us to use that products on all the mainstream market.
Okay, cool. I appreciate you sharing that, just giving a little bit more insight into the scalability side of things. Obviously, the main topic of this whole conversation has been revolving around systems, and we've been diving a lot into like softwares that you've been using and specific softwares. We just started to transition a little bit into the role of people, right? And the
Mm-hmm.
structure. And when you think about scaling, and this might be a little bit more of a philosophy question, but when you think about scaling your organization, what is the first thing you think about what people you're going to need to be able to scale and what gaps are missing in terms of hiring and training those people? Or do you think about like the technology, the tools, the software? Is that secondary to the people? What's your thought process there on how you think about if I want to scale an organization, where should I be thinking about first?
No, I think it'd be the people over like the process. I mean, I think if you're a big company, then maybe you could start to have those high level conversations and thoughts. But in the beginning, we just did simple, as basic as it sounds, like made a sheet when I got too busy, right? I couldn't do everything anymore. All right, what do I want to do? What don't I want to do? And then what I didn't want to do, I kind of built out into a position and said, what most likely is this? Like, I don't want to deal with transaction management, paperwork, compliance. All right. So our first hire was a transaction manager.
Hmm.
And it was just kind of going on there. As in the beginning of an agent, you're doing everything. So, I know broker owners who love tech and they handle techs and systems. I know broker owners who love sales management and training. They are still the sales manager or training of their brokerage. Other broker owners might love the accounting and just want to be locked in a closet and do all the financials, right? So it really depends on your passion, your wheelhouse. But I would say as you kind of grow and you have the financial means to do so, to start to unload the tasks that you don't enjoy doing the most. So whatever it is you enjoy doing the least, that's going to make you more productive and make your job more enjoyable. Take that off your plate first. So for me, it was always like paperwork, sitting in the office. I hated listing coordinations or transaction management and enter the listings in the MLS because I'm like, I need to be out selling. I want to be out talking to people. I don't have time for this. I can watch it. The tech I wasn't utilizing at a high level, so it's easy for me to maneuver around and figure out the basic stuff. And until we really need to, once we had a large organization, need to figure out those integrations and higher level stuff than I had the time. But that tech person was never really in need while we were in production or a smaller team. It's really just getting the things off your plate that you don't enjoy. So that way, and what I've also found is those are typically some of the lower paying positions, right? It's a lot of the basic cross and T's, dot and I's type things. And then you're going to have more job satisfaction, but plus you're probably making more money because if you have somebody doing all the back end stuff, transaction management, then you're probably doing more sales. And then your offset, the more production you're bringing is definitely going to offset the cost of bringing that person to help with that. Then if scaled and grew, the next hire you might hire after you have buyer transaction and listing coordinations marketing. Maybe you have somebody now does custom pieces or reaches out to your database, creates events for you. So all you got to do is show up and kind of talk to people or field the phone calls respond to texts and emails from those campaigns. So, I think our second hire, our transaction manager was a listing coordination, eventually split those off, but our second hire was marketing. We were outsourcing all the pieces, getting subpar work, always behind schedule. So we brought somebody in-house that got our own proprietary stuff, started to kind of customize our things, and then had somebody focus on that and find ways to create engagement. So once again, we get back to what we want to do is speak to more people, looking to buy and sell homes.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you laying that out. I think it gives a good insight into the balance really between the software side of things and the people side of things. And really, if you
Mm-hmm.
want to scale, you really need both. And there,
Yeah.
I think it's about having the right priorities in place.
I
Um,
think, I mean, personally, and I think it's going to be split 50-50 from the groups that I've been in and the rooms I've been a part of. But my personal opinion is that people's more important than the systems. I feel that if you have the right people, you still can probably accomplish your goals. But if you have the right systems but the wrong people, it's going to be tough for you to accomplish anything. So I
yeah,
prioritize people over systems, but the systems are important to make those people more efficient and productive.
yeah. No, I agree. And it's a good way to look at it from in terms of how they really supplement and complement each other
Yeah.
as well. We're going to put a bow here on the conversation, but I'm curious too to cast a little vision for people. What is your opinion, Joe, on like as you think about the scalability of people in this business, and you've been in this business long enough to kind of experience ebbs and flows, as we mentioned earlier, but where does your mind go in terms of like, um, what does a scalable business look like? So is it the business that's trying to get to 100 million, and then that's a milestone technically in your mind where you're thinking, all right, there's different systems needed to run a 150 to 200 million dollar business than a 50 million dollar business, right?
Hmm.
And then what about beyond there? Like, where do you what about trying to get to 500 million, right? In a scalable model. So I'm just curious, like, number one, what you've experienced in terms of how your business has ebbed with your sales volume, and then how that ties to your system support. But if you want to take things higher to the next level, to get to a level that you haven't even been to yet, where does your vision take you about what it looks like to run a 500 million or even $1 billion organization from a system standpoint? What are your thoughts on that vision kind of casting?
Yeah, I mean, I think as a team, we're running pretty basic systems, so about 100 million in volume. We had about 12 agents in production, and we're all a decent group of producers. So we didn't have a mill of like agents coming in and going. So it was pretty manageable. I think we had an office staff of three and about 12 agents, including me and my wife in production. Um, we got the brokerage, obviously, a brokerage software. We needed more, but once we got to that quarter million to or a quarter billion to 500 million annual sales, we definitely needed to bring on a lot more systems to kind of create the synergy between all the divisions. And I would see the next integration of that as you go, if you want to scale to a billion, is, I would see it difficult for one person to do it. It's almost like you have multiple people who are managing very precise systems for your organization. Like you might have one person who handles systems for agents, right? And that has to do with leads, making sure communication's gone, auditing, all those plugins are working, IDX integrations, showing time, things like that. Then you have another person who maybe is handling technology for the back end, which all your different divisions can communicate through each other through Slack integrations or whatever it might be. And then you have that like a workflow where you create this hub where everything flows to. So you have one centric data point where everybody might be working off a different system, but there's one checkpoint where everybody can go get visibility on what's going on with any aspect of the business. So, I think it would be almost like some of it depend on the division, different software solutions, and some of it might be proprietary, depending how big you get and the way you're doing the workflow. And then you having two specialists in office, one for front of the house, one for back of the house, almost running the tech for each one of those. If you kind of want to get to that level beyond a billion, I think it'd just be a matter of manpower from there, and depending on what else you want to do. But I know, like, kind of where we're at right now, it's getting to the point where it might be teetering where we need another person and then to bring in some custom integration. So we get visibility because where the systems do all talk to each other, it still sometimes get a little clunky working out of different systems. And Sometimes like numbers might be off if there was manual data requirement from one system to the other. So just creating that custom integration and almost, having those coders and developers create your own system that everything plugs into once you have most of your solutions in place, so that you kind of have that main hub for your organization, the brokerage or whatever business it might be.
Joe, do you feel like to grow your organization to those types of numbers, is it what you just kind of touched on at towards the end, which was like system optimization, is how I would kind of word that? Um, do you think the emphasis falls there or on again, people optimization, like product, like driving a different level of productivity somehow, whether that's through the systems or just
I'm
different
all,
you're
I mean, I definitely, I mean, as when it gets big and you have a lot of data that you're tracking, the system optimization is more important than it is at these lower levels. But I'm still going to prioritize the people, because if you have, you know, people, as long as you have the right people in place and they know how to track, it might get a little clunkier, spend more time, but you'll get accurate information. If you have the wrong people but the right systems, but they're inputting the wrong data, or they're, inefficient, whatever it might be, then regardless of how good the system is, you're not getting utilization out of it.
yeah.
So finding the right people in place, and I found that not every, I found from my personal experience, most teams that try to scale more with this tech or AI component and get rid of that human bandwidth, their numbers tend to go backwards instead of kind of the trajectory continues up, and they're having the growth they experience. A lot of times, I think it's great to, if you add that as like to piggyback the human component and the people in place, you're going to have a much more aggressive growth. But I feel if you're kind of trying to bring on the tech and the systems to replace the human element, a lot of times it doesn't work out the way you wanted it to.
Yeah, I appreciate it. My mind's just kind of like thinking about the role that it plays to either get more productivity out of your existing people, right? Like there's obviously a limit to that at some point, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
as compared to just having to get more people. Like where is that balance of, in order to scale to say 500 million, if I'm doing 100 million or 200 million right now and I want to get to 500 million, is my emphasis on I need to get more people with the same levels of productivity that I already have, or should I be looking at I got X amount of people, what's how much more productivity could I be getting out of my people without even necessarily adding more to the bunch? Like
So I
there's
would, I mean, from like a recruiting, if you're talking about like from agents, I would say more people. What I found in my personal experience is that you bring all these tools and resources on for agents to make them more efficient, right? So you'll have an agent, they're a $10 million producer working 40 hours a week. You're like, hey man, I got this great system. It's going to take 10 hours off your workload. So, that's going to give you 25% of your time. That should give you 12.5 million in production. If we're just going off math, you're saving 25% of the time. You repurpose that, you go 12.5 million production. What I find happens more often than not, I would say 90% of the time, if I was tracking it, would be that $10 million producer remains at 10 million, but only works 30 hours a week.
mm-hmm.
So they're going to produce as much as they want to. Everybody kind of has their artificial threshold.
They'll have
And
their own artificial lid
yeah,
there.
exactly. And they might hit it. It might be easier for them to hit, and you're going to spend more money and bring on solutions to make it easier, but don't. And if that's the purpose, then great. But I wouldn't anticipate that that's going to get them over the top. There's very few who utilize that and keep that same work ethic and tenacity, working as many hours to continue to grow and scale. Most of them are like, hey, I'm happy doing what I was doing. I'm just going to work less.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I appreciate that. It goes back to the importance of like, and we can have a whole other call really on like how to recruit the other people that have a different mindset, right?
Yeah,
That's a whole other
exactly.
conversation, but an important one, especially if you're building a team with, hopefully with A players.
Absolutely.
So Joe, you shared a lot today. Like I said, this was recorded, so people can go back and rewatch it on our within our Top Producers Nation community. We're gonna put a bow here on the call, unless anybody else had a question you wanted to throw in the chat. I don't see any in there right now. There's still people on watching live, so I'm sure they're gaining a lot of valuable knowledge from listening to you. And so, anything last that you want to kind of end the call with, Joe, that you feel like we left out?
Not really. I think we touched on anything. I would say, the main thing, the biggest takeaway is, you still got to do, there's no system that's going to replace work. So regardless of how good something sounds, if it sounds like you're not going to have to do anything. That's always not the case. When you're, you know, looking at solutions and systems to help optimize your organization, you want to see how it can make you more efficient, not necessarily replace a person or a task, but make that task or that person's job a little bit easier.
Yeah. No, I get it. That's really the point, I think, with leveraging any of these systems is if it's not making your job easier and it's making it more complicated, it's probably not the most ideal system um,
100%.
that you're adding in. And it should ultimately be, making things simpler so that you can generate more productivity at the end of the day. And that's the
Absolutely.
point. Well, you're the master of systems, Joe. We appreciate you sharing some of your thoughts here. I look forward to seeing you in person next week at our mastermind in Tampa. And sure we'll have you on another call as well at some point. But thanks for being here.
All right. Sounds good. Thanks for having me, Don. It was a pleasure.
Have a good day, Joe.
Take
Thank you.
care. Bye bye.